Hey guys, what's up? Scott Clark with Scooter Media, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do time-lapse videos in the Canon R7. Let's get into it. The time-lapse video feature is such a handy feature built into the Canon R7, and I have been using it all the time. It's so easy, and the fact that you don't have to take all the pictures and put them together yourself makes it so convenient. The first thing we need to do is go into the camera setting and turn on our time-lapse. And just so you're aware, I am doing this example on the Canon R7, but this works with any camera that has the time-lapse video feature built in. So the first thing we need to do is obviously turn our camera on and make sure we're in the video mode. Once we do that, we're gonna go into the menu and we're gonna navigate over to page number 5. And then you see there, our top option is time-lapse movie. We're gonna click on that, and then we're gonna click again and scroll down to enable. Now that we've enabled it, we can see all of our options within the time-lapse video section. So the first option we see in the time-lapse movie section is interval. And what that is gonna be the time in between each picture it takes. So right now it is set to 3 seconds. We can go in there and we can raise that up, we can turn it down, we can add minutes in, we can even add in hours if necessary. However, for today's example, I'm just gonna leave it at 3, and then we're gonna set OK. So we've got our interval set to 3 seconds, so every 3 seconds, it's gonna take a picture of our time-lapse. The next option in the time-lapse movie section is the number of shots, and this is pretty self-explanatory. This is the number of pictures it's going to take to put together the time-lapse. But I just wanted to show you in here, right in here, you can see this little video icon, and then beside it, it says 1457. And then you can see the little play icon and it says 10 seconds. So what that's telling you is basically your camera is going to be taking pictures for 14 minutes and 57 seconds. And at the end of that, when it's all said and done, you're gonna have a 10-second time lapse. So when you play this back after 300 shots and it puts it all together, you're gonna have 10 seconds of video to watch. So if we do go in here and change this, let's say 600 shots, and then you can see, now that I've changed it to 600, our time has now changed to 29:57. So it's basically gonna be a half an hour of taking pictures, and that's going to give us 20 seconds of video. And again, if you go back in here, we're gonna change this back to 300 for now. If we go back into, let's hit OK. But if we go back to our interval and we change this to, let's say 5, you can see that's also going to change the amount of time that it takes for the pictures to be taken. And it's also going to change the amount of video that it's giving you, because now we've added 2 more seconds in between each picture. So now instead of 3 seconds, it's going to take a picture, it's going to wait 5 seconds, it's going to take another picture, it's going to wait 5 seconds and take another picture. So you can see by changing the interval and the number of shots is going to change how long the camera's going to be out there taking pictures, as well as how long the video of the time lapse will be at the end. So I am going to go back in here and I'm going to change this back to 3. I'm going to set OK. The next option below the number of shots is the movie record size. And this is just going to give you the option to shoot this in 4K or full HD. I'd recommend using 4K if you have the option. It's going to give you a much better image, and you can always downscale it to HD if you want to. Going the other way, if you shoot it in HD and want to scale it up, you can do that, but you're going to lose quality going up into 4K. My recommendation would just shoot 4K if you have the option. The next option below movie record size is auto exposure. And if we go into auto exposure, we have 2 options: fixed first frame and each frame. And basically what that's going to do is, if you set it to fixed first frame, it's going to keep the exposure of your very first picture, and it's going to keep that exposure throughout the time lapse itself. If we set it to each frame, if the exposure changes throughout the time lapse, it's going to change with each frame depending on how that change in exposure is. I generally use this set to fixed first frame. And I find, especially if you're doing something like a sunset or something like that, you don't want the exposure changing as it gets darker and the sun lowers. You basically want to keep that exposure the same so that you're seeing that gradual light go down. But again, this is an option that you have. It's totally up to you what you want to use. If you do want it to change the exposure over each frame, you have the option to do that. For today's example, we'll just leave it at fixed first frame. The next option below auto exposure is our screen auto off. And basically all that is it's going to turn your screen off while the time lapse is taking all of its pictures. So once you get it set up, you take your first shot, the screen will stay on for a few seconds, and then after a while, it's going to shut off and save battery power and save a little juice on your camera. But if you do want to leave it on and be able to see all the shots that it's taking, you do have that option. If we go in here, it's basically screen auto off, disable or enable. Enable, it's going to turn it off, and that way the screen will shut off after it's started. The last option we have there is beep per picture taken. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to give you an audible beep every time one of the pictures is taken. And I do find this handy sometimes because especially if you use the screen off option, you want to make sure that you're still hearing that, just to make sure that you know that it's still taking the picture. The light on the camera does go off on the back of the camera, the little red light, to show that you are taking a picture each time. So you do have that visual, but I also find this audible noise just a nice feature to have. I know that it's still going if that screen's off. And just to let you know that once you do finish taking all the pictures, even if you have the screen turned off, once it's done and it's taken all 300 pictures, it's done putting it all together, it'll turn back on. Basically, the menu pops back on once it's finished, and you know you're done once that menu comes back on. Or if you do leave the menu system on, you want your screen on and you are watching all those shots, obviously you won't hear the beeps anymore, and you will be able to see that it's stopped taking pictures. And that's basically it for setting everything up. That's all of our options. We've got it set up to take our shot. Now that we have it all set up, we get out of the menu system, we have this screen waiting for us, and it basically says test and set exposure setting on this screen. And basically what you're gonna do is it says fully press the shutter button to take a test shot, and then press the movie record button to get ready to shoot the time lapse. So I'm just gonna do an example of this just to show you how this works inside before we take it out to do a time lapse. So basically all you're gonna do, if we hit OK and we take a picture, we can go into see the exposure on our picture. And again, this is basically where you would go in and say, okay, I either like the exposure or I don't like the exposure, and then you can change it. And just know that this is your visual cue to know that this is what our first frame is gonna look like. So our exposure is going to be based off this because we did go with that first frame exposure setting. So if we get back out of this, we're back to our thing. If we did want to start doing our time lapse, we would just hit the movie record button. And then once we do see that, it basically says to start and stop the movie record, we would hit the shutter button. And to return to the previous screen, we would hit the movie button. So just to show you an example of how this would start, I'm not going to let this go just because there's nothing happening in here. But if we did want to start it, we press our button. There you go. You can see it's taking pictures. It's doing a countdown, and you can hear that audible noise, even though it's fairly quiet. And there you can see our screen's gone off now. So it is still working, but you can hear the audible noise. Okay guys, we've got our camera all set up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the camera outside. It is the middle of winter, so it's not gonna work for any kind of clouds or anything like that. We'll just do a quick traffic example, just to kind of give you an example of what this looks like. We'll do our 15 minutes at 3 seconds, just to give you an example of what it looks like. And we'll bring it back and just show you an example of that. But literally, once we have it set up, we go out, we hit record. It takes all the pictures, it's gonna put it together in camera, so we do not have to put it together. And then basically, once we take our card out and put it into our computer, we just take that time lapse right off the card and it's ready to go. You can put it into a timeline. It's ready to be, put out to whoever, social media, whatever you wanna do with it, it's already done. We do not have to put all those pictures together ourselves, which I think is a great feature built into these cameras. Anyways, let's go outside, we'll take a quick example, and then we'll bring it back in and show you guys. Let's go do it now. All right, guys, I made it outside. It's super bright. I should have brought my sunglasses, but anyways, all the settings are the same from inside. We're gonna shoot some traffic just to show you an example of the time lapse. Hey guys, I just wrapped up shooting our time lapse. I'm just walking back to the studio now. I just wanted to let you guys know, if there's anybody that has not really done time lapses before, or beginners that are watching this video, The reason I did come out here was that you do need some sort of movement for the time lapse to work. So usually I do sunsets, sunrises, clouds moving, but you need some sort of movement in the shot in order for your time lapse to work. So anyways, just want to let you guys know that's why I came out and shot the traffic for the time lapse. See you back at the studio in a few minutes. Okay guys, we're back at the studio. I just want to show you our time lapse now, and I have not done anything with it. I just literally took the card off the camera, put it into the computer, and I'm going to show you what it looks like straight out of the camera. I haven't done a thing to it. So here we go. We're just going to hit play, and there it is. And as you can see, straight out of camera, it worked, and that is with our 300 shots at 3 seconds in between each shot. And the other thing you can do, if we get out of this, you can bring this into Premiere Pro or whatever video editing software you are using, and you can edit it. You can speed it up, slow it down, chop it up, put it into a timeline with other video stuff. Whatever you want to do with it, you can do. So just looking at this here, it's a little quick. We might want to just slow it down a little. And we'll go, I don't know, 75%. You don't want to slow it down too much because it will get a little jerky on you. But let's see that. Yeah, even that looks pretty good. There you go, guys. We showed you how to set up the camera to take the time-lapse video. We went out and shot an example video of the traffic time-lapse, and then we brought it back in, we put it on a timeline, and also showed you that you can use it straight out of camera through social media or wherever you want to post it. It's good to go straight out of camera. And what I would suggest doing is just play with all the settings in there, change the interval in between each picture, change the number of pictures. Just play around with it. It's such a fun feature. And once you get in there and start using it a little bit more often, you kind of get used to what looks good for certain things. Certain time and intervals look good for clouds, etc. So just get in there and play around. All right, guys, I think this time-lapse video mode is such a cool feature, and I do use it all the time, and I love it. Hopefully you guys found value in this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, as it really does make a difference, and I'd love to have you join me on this YouTube journey. Also, remember to hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything coming out on this channel. Thanks for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.